All right. So first order of business is approval of the November minutes. Do we need any discussion about that? Any comments, additions, edits? Nope. We need to do roll call. We need to do roll call. Sorry, first we need to do roll call because we have members on Zoom. So we'll do the people in person first. So Richard Smith present.
Sean Sullivan present.
And then our folks on
Jessica Cannon present.
Andrea Bennett present.
Valjean Estes present.
Phyllis Goodson present.
PJ Klein present.
All right, perfect. Also didn't hear any discussion for November minutes, so unless anyone has anything, we'll go ahead and approve those. Okay,
Motion to approve.
and then we will move on to item number 1. Oh, do we?
Well,
To vote. Really?
for the minutes.
Okay. Okay, for the minutes, we have to do roll call. So Richard Smith, aye.
Aye. Sean Sullivan, aye.
Andrea
Jessica
Bennett,
Cannon,
aye.
aye.
Phyllis Goodson, aye.
Valjean Estes, aye.
PJ Klein, aye.
Right, so that passes unanimously. And then we will move on to item number 1, and I will pass that off to David.
Yeah, I sent out the report on Saturday, so sorry I didn't get it to you guys end of last week, but hopefully you've had a little time over the weekend to take a look at it. I'll call this the, I don't know, maybe 75, 80% draft. So there's still some things as I go back over it, I want to fill in some more detail, or obviously there's a few formatting edits in there as well. But just wanted to bring it and get it in front of all y'all over the weekend, is just to have some chance to look over it before, we kind of have to have the final version with, I would say by the start of next week. So I have time both to develop a little presentation in order for Rich to present. We'll kind of work together. I'll always take a first shot at a presentation, just PowerPoint kind of thing.
Sure.
And as well as be able to get it to the printer in time to get hard copies for the city council meeting, which will be the 9th of January.
Kind of ironic that we're a clean energy committee and we're printing copies.
What was that? I'm sorry, PJ.
We're printing copies when we're
Oh.
the clean energy people.
Yeah.
I did have a few. I don't know if is this the time where we're going to talk about comments or.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing I think is important, we hit on energy efficiency a couple of times in the report, how it's been a priority and it will be a priority. And kind of the objective of this organization group is to lower the carbon emissions, not greenhouse gas, right? Don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but the carbon emissions on our energy usage as a city. And in the timeline, we talk about the carbon plan, but we neglect to include anything about what Duke Energy, our primary power source, is doing, right? We mention about it, but we don't really show the plan that is out of the CIRP. And I think it's important to show that, because at the end of the day, I think that the message that our leadership needs to hear is that no matter which pathway we go down, we're going to get to 70%. We're going to get our target based off of our energy usage by the utility. However, energy efficiency is still important because of the cost benefit that we will continue to see as energy costs continue to rise as we transition to this cleaner technology. So I think it's important that we show that Duke Energy is doing this. That is going to be very helpful to the city. However, this best bang for our buck still needs to be something we need to continue to advocate for, regardless of what Duke Energy does.
Yeah, that's definitely true for our earlier goal, 2035.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hitting that 2050 goal will be more interesting, I think, you know, setting that, halfway to hit that 58% is going to be, you know, going above and beyond Duke, but that'll be, past all of our times as far as this committee, but yeah, I think you're right, BJ, kind of, laying out, what the Duke efforts are, could be important inclusion into the report, so.
Well, you need that energy efficiency going towards that 2050 goal, regardless of what Duke does. So I think that's an important part. You know, we had this other objective that everyone's aware of. If I can find the right page, that is this community-wide transitioning from the 50% electrification. I'm not sure that we have a good line of sight to that goal, and you know, 2035, granted, is still 12 years away. I know these fleets, it takes a while for them to start moving out. And for those who are interested, I read a very interesting piece this morning by CNBC that talks about some of these large manufacturers that had these ambitions of going to EVs have started to transition back towards hybrids. And they're starting to invest more into hybrid vehicles because buyers seem to want to buy hybrids. They're not fully committed to buying EVs. And I'm not sure what side of the fence I'm on this topic, but it's interesting when you're large Fortune 500 companies and companies worldwide that are your large auto manufacturers are moving from a desire to be EV to a more of a hybrid system. I just don't think the infrastructure is there in the short term to support EVs at a full deployment. So maybe that's something we need to think about, how if we didn't go straight EV and we went to some more of a hybrid model as an interim step before we get to EVs, how would that help us get to our goal?
Good point.
Yeah, I saw that as well, where they were talking about hybrids and everyone was using them, and that no one thought that hybrids, or wasn't it Elon Musk thought hybrids would just not be used, but they're more of a stepping stone.
Mhm.
I thought we brought this up at some point where we were, because it was electrify, and we did mention hybrids during some discussion, but I think it was to be 100% hybrids.
In the goal, that's
Yeah.
correct.
The goal was 50% electrification of the fleet by 2035, but by 2050, it was 100% electrification of the fleet. And we also put an asterisk out there which said, as technology allowed for the 2050. And I don't think that was particular to just the fleet. It was also to our entire 2050 goal, which included the energy part. Because A, we knew there were some vehicles that we weren't sure if we'd ever be able to transition, and B, we knew there was some energy that we would still have to buy from the utility that would still be, could potentially not be carbon free, just because of the need of having dispatchable resources in times of need, you know, hot days or cold days where they have to dispatch fossil as emergency power sources.
Yeah, you know, there's also, you know, you're talking about hybrid vehicles. There's, you know, I know from the fleet technology conference this year, and what some other cities are doing, as well as just diversifying their fuel types. So I know Raleigh has done a big push to shift, and it's like 70 to 80% of their medium to heavy duty fleet to renewable propane. So it's propane that comes from plant and animal based sources. So, you know, it's moving that, you know, that's moving away from fossil fuels as well. It's not electrifying their fleet, but they're certainly diversifying their fuel sources. So, you know, those could be some interim steps as well. So, you know, moving to a source like that would be away from fossil fuel, as well as, you know, while we're not talking greenhouse gas reductions so much in this report, it would certainly have a big impact on their greenhouse gases as well. So, that's, those are some recommendations that we could consider as well. And there's certainly some grant funding out there for infrastructure to support those kind of efforts as well.
I think our report needs to add some additional forward-looking stuff. What I mean by that is basically prepping the city council to say, hey, if you want to continue down this path, it's going to cost money. And here's kind of our high level of what we need to do. I know we talk about energy efficiency and here things we've done in the past, but here's what we want to do moving forward. And these, it's going to cost us money. You need to allocate money to do this. And I don't believe I gathered that from reading the report.
Would you want to put it on the last page? Is that
Well,
kind
it's page 11 that talks about what our focus is, right? It needs to say we're going to focus on these things, and they're not free. We may be able to get grants, we may be able to get additional funding, but this is going to have to come out of the city coffers. And then, and I know we're going to talk about it in a second, but then, we also need to talk about 929. I have no idea what city council decided on the Gateway or Skyway or whatever we decide to call 929 North Front Street, but that gives us an advantage. And I think that needs to be included in here as we transition to that building and talk about the energy efficiency differences from buildings that were built in the last 20 years versus buildings that were built 70 years ago.
We have discovered all the lighting in 929 is not LED. So we're actually some early discussion now about trying to get an idea of what a project would cost to do LED retrofit it in that facility.
But that's a good example to be in the report.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe you put something there, just looking at the new building.
Yeah, we'll get to it later, but you will see a early energy look at what 929 is, just based on a few months of data. That's what I sent out earlier this morning. I'm not sure if y'all are able to take a look at that yet, but we'll dive into that a little bit later in our meeting today. Those are all great points you bring up, PJ, and I can work to add that context into the draft here.
Maybe there's a way to kind of do the compliment sandwich around that. Talk about, with a newer building, you have these positives, but at the same time, respectfully, to make it more efficient, you can do these other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of on a positive spin.
It's almost like a backhanded comment or a compliment. Great new building, but there's some things you need to fix still.
But there's some positive things associated with the building. I think you're going to be doing the EV chargers and probably the wiring associated with being able to do those kind of things. I have to think the HVAC efficiency is bound to be better than the older buildings, all of those kind of things. So highlighting a few of the positives, but we have these other opportunities to improve upon.
Yeah, don't think you just moved into a new building and all your headaches went away. You still have things that you have to do, and it's probably going to be more cost effective at implementing said projects than it would be an older structure.
Yeah, as far as energy use for the new facility, we're just now getting, moved in, getting people into the space. Just now being able to get the Duke energy bills onto our not only account, but like our dashboard where we can download all of the information. So very, very early look yet so far. So it'll be good once we have a full year's worth of data, but we can begin to get an early look.
Full year's worth of
Our data, right? Yeah, we could always go look back in time on what the previous energy use was.
I mean, you don't expect it to fluctuate, right? Very much. You're going to have a winter peak and a summer peak, and then it's going to be pretty tight for an office building compared to a operations facility.
Where were we with the issue an RFP for the food transition study? Like what's
We're waiting
that?
on money from the block grant.
So we submitted that or the application or?
We, for one thing, the application to submit was extended by the DOE, so we have until April. Where we are right now is the city managers want a presentation on what some of the proposed projects are. One of those, of course, being the transition study, issuing an RFP for that, but some other suggestions on whatever funds are remaining have come up. One of those being, can we have a pool of money that we could have available for some of our low-income disadvantaged communities to tap into for energy efficiency retrofits. There's an existing program within the city called Healthy Homes. And we've got a meeting coming up either this week or next week with the staff who run that program. We just want to see if we can collaborate somehow. They get a lot of their funding from HUD, but we want to see if we could use this block grant money to supplement or enhance that program at all. No, Dave,
I don't remember seeing anything about that program in our annual report like that we're going to submit for. And I think that's a good accomplishment that we're submitting for that grant. I may have missed it, but I don't remember seeing that.
yeah, I mentioned it briefly in there, but yeah, I can pull it down a bit more as well.
Fleet transition plan, the process that we will go through is to make sure we have all our ducks in a row about the expense of all of the funds. Fleet transition plan is a part of that. We'll have a plan for all of those funds that will be presented to council prior to what we would present to them as an appropriation ordinance. That ordinance then brings the funds into our hands to be able to utilize, after which we'll be able to issue the RFP. That's an early 2024 action, the first quarter or so.
Dave, would you care to comment on, I was listening actually to the budget session. Had insomnia. I'm just kidding. I was listening to the budget session from November, a little bit of it. And I know that there's, not to use the word slush fund, but there's unallocated ARP money that they're trying to spend before the deadline. And then there's always sort of a little bit of, I think the CFO calls it your savings account. It's just it's not a slush fund. It's not for unnecessary things, but obviously the city always has to have cash on hand. So I'm just wondering if we could be mindful of those ARP monies going away, and if there are smaller projects that we know that we can encourage them to do. I also, at some point, want to bring this up. It now seems like the right time. We now have 2 city council members who campaign specifically on environmentalism. 2 new members, Celeste Andrews and David Joyner. I think it might be great to invite them, along with all the city council, to maybe in the new year, maybe pop in as a Zoom to our meeting and say hello and get to know all of us as principals. But I want us to be mindful of the fact that I think we have a much more receptive city council to work with starting this year.
So our finance director and department they are monitoring ARPA funds like a hawk.
Yeah, good.
So the status of that funding is, and I probably was less intentionally listening to that part of the presentation, so I don't have the numbers in my head to recollect, but the amount of allocation that is not committed is not very big at all. And the projects that are out there that are still pending are being monitored pretty thoroughly by the finance folks. So I'm
Got it.
one of those people that is responsible for 2 projects that are funded through ARPA funds. So we get questions fairly frequently about the status of it. So,
Okay.
and the other part, I believe, Jessica, you may be referring to is fund balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. We're statutorily required to have a fund balance, have cash on hand.
Right.
City council has adopted a policy of 20% as the target, minimum target.
20% of
20% of the budget.
is cash on hand.
Correct. That's
Wow.
That's over and above, but I mean, if you think about what we need it for, the best example that I can give is a hurricane.
Right. Yep.
People think that we get reimbursed by FEMA, which we do, but we are still waiting on funds to come back from Hurricane Florence, which was 2018.
Right.
So we have to pay bills before that. So in order to do that, we have to have cash on hand, and that's why we're required to do that. So.
Got it.
So a question I have is we had originally asked for the funds to do the fleet transition study in this year's budget. And they said instead, use the energy efficiency block grant money for that. And so if I'm hearing right now, they're asking, well, how else could we spend that money instead of the fleet study?
No,
No.
just, we don't think
It's gonna take all of it, right? So they're just looking for other ways to spend the remainder.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
We weren't gonna spend it all.
Yeah,
on one
I
day.
understand, I understand.
yeah, so we had we suggested a few other potential projects. Dave could use some money, maybe to put solar on top of his parks maintenance facility that he's working on. I don't know if that's in the budget or what's the status of the budget for that project, but there could be funds could be used for something like that, certainly, or on the MLK gym expansion is another one. But another possible use is this pool of money for lower income, I'm sure it ties in somewhat to affordable housing, which it was on everybody's lips and such a big topic area for this last election cycle. So if it could make some homes more affordable and more energy efficient for some of our citizens, that would be good use of funds, just good public outreach.
Do they have a timeline for when they'll award the money? Or, I mean, if it's due in April, is it pretty quick? Or
I think it would be awarded pretty quickly. Okay. Then you would have, I'm not sure what the time period, probably a year or two to spend all the funds. So.
And is the RFP, I mean, do you need the funds before you issue an RFP?
Yeah, you don't necessarily want to take steps in front of city council action. So we could get ready have the RFP drafted, have it working through the purchasing queue, if you will. But we wouldn't advertise until the funds were.
Yeah, I have some examples of others, cities,
Okay.
RFPs for such work, so hopefully tap into some of that, or I'm sure we have some specifics for Wilmington, but obviously, but at least some good examples to look into.
Anyone else have anything on Zoom?
Were there any accomplishments or things that you guys think I need to focus some more content behind? I tried to kind of go based on our kind of recommended, the things that we prioritized. You know, it's been a little while now, that list of prioritized actions that I included within the report, kind of how we rank them. But if there's some additional focus you guys would like me to put on some items, certainly want to hear about it, whether it's now or in the next few days.
I have I'm not sure the exact suggestion for it, but in figure 2, when we're looking at recommended action items, is this forward facing and looking back, or?
This was, I would say, kind of what we focused on over the last year, but forward-looking items, we could, I think that's something we'll probably address in some of our upcoming meetings, what we really want to focus on for the next year or two. So.
Okay. I don't know if it's like a verbiage suggestion for going forward, because I guess this probably does realistically represent the prioritization as it's been, but we have at 7th fostering the participation of the MWBE in all aspects of the city's clean energy transition. And I'm wondering if going forward, we could have that maybe with an asterisk or something that is saying that like all other action items should be viewed through that lens. Otherwise, it looks like we're trying to do all of this, and then at the end, you know, if we can foster it, that would be cool. But I think if we can kind of center that as like the lens that we're trying to action out the other policies, that would just also give us better, I don't know, but like focus to ensure that that we're trying to make sure that this is like equitable action, not only for the, you know, energy efficiency and everything else, but like within our community as well.
Yeah, can we spell that out too? Because I don't even know. I know was it minorities and women?
Women business owners.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Andrea. Definitely add that into it.
Thank you.
Maybe also the only other comment I would have is on number 4, support the implementation of federal legislation. You've actually, Dave, done a lot of work coordinating with your counterparts around the state. We've done a lot of comparisons, and I think, you know, city to city, we're not in competition with Asheville and Raleigh. We're learning from them. Like, and I think the coordinating that you do along those lines, we've learned a lot. And I think if you spell it out a little bit, or, you know, something about, you know, coordinating statewide and regionally with other municipalities on these issues. I think you kind of sell yourself short there on number 4.
I speak to that a little bit in.
Yeah, down below, I saw that.
Yeah, page 8.
Yeah. I think if you just add the word support implementation via routine coordination with, you know, other municipalities and state or, institutions regionally and statewide. If you just give yourself a little extra credit there, because it's an important part of what we're doing here, is seeing what everybody else is doing, and we're all kind of learning together and trying to look for the best ideas to push forward.
Yeah, good point. There is a can we update a little bit about our meeting last week, just in regard to the building policy? We did have a presentation last week to our city manager and assistant city managers, Dave and myself. Presented the draft policy to them, and they had some questions and some good feedback, which we're going to incorporate, particularly things like some ROI examples of LEED Silver projects versus typical built facilities. Trying to find some local examples, kind of Wilmington specific examples, if you will. But anyway, we're just kind of working through that process of making the presentation before we get it to council, making sure that presentation is informative and as Dave mentioned, right now, like the budget is really being looked at closely. We don't have a whole lot of extra for next year, so anything that's going to be, potentially bring additional cost to the city, they're going to be looking at very closely as well. So, just wanted to share that action that we've again kind of behind the scenes still working on that building policy in order to get it in front of council, hopefully in the early in 2024 as well. So keep you all informed of how it's working its way through our internal process.
Us moving to silver, that was last year or this year? I don't remember. That last year.
As part of the policy recommendation?
Or what was it when we got City of
Oh, that
Wilmington?
that was the solar.
Soul Smart.
Soul Smart.
Yeah.
Soul Smart. So
That was last year.
That's last year.
yeah, that's the Soul Smart program is something that's it's certainly still on my burner. But kind of the next step in order for us to move to the next level involves some collaboration with our county
inspectors.
cohorts. And that's been difficult. Or it's taken some time to establish those relationships, I would say. So I think, yeah, definitely I think it's some steps we can achieve kind of once we get to that point. I would love to see us to kind of continue to move up that Soul Smart level of.
Would it help to like reach out to other towns or cities that are within the county rather than not attack, but try to just move to the county?
Perhaps.
I don't-
Any way in to the county to kind of get them on board with the process, I'm all for. I know we've had some new planning folks and stuff. I know the kind of the ones in some of our engineering folks, I think, work with them. So yeah, I'm still exploring ways to make that happen. So I've got the Soul Smart plaque behind in my office, so every day I see it, that's a reminder. So
Yeah, that would have been a good communication.
yeah, that would be a great achievement if we could have gotten there this year.
Yes.
Moving up to that next Soul Smart level. But there's a good action to focus on for next year as well. But yeah, probably a lot of that falls on me trying to continue to push getting those relationships established and the collaboration from our county colleagues over there, so. Any other thoughts, guys? Um,
Well, I mean, and kind of falling on that is, I mean, would it help? I don't know. I don't know how long our summary was from last year, but maybe to highlight
like,
more than 1 year. I don't, I mean, maybe not.
I'm gonna add Soul Smart to our focus for next year.
Would that be in the timeline, Sean, that you're talking about, or?
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, so you know, because I even forget what was last year, what was this year, so just to show everything we've done, I mean, it's only been 2 years, but
I didn't have it in the timeline there, Dave, is for one is,
Yeah, I'm not sure it's appropriate there, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get.
I'm gonna add it to like a focus, what we can work towards for next year. Of our-
I'm sorry, were you trying to see what we did in 22? Is that what you were saying?
He's saying maybe we should highlight
other things we've done.
like
not
from
just-
the inception of the committee to now, like.
That are still impacting us.
Just to show that we're doing more than what's right here, what we've done in the past year. I mean, this is a good example, right, that it follows up with what we did
Okay.
previous year. I'm not saying we do it, I just for fun.
Well, I will be working on it through the week, so if anything pops into any of your minds, just drop me a note or give me a call.
We'll move on to item number 2.
Yes, sorry, I didn't print out the agenda, but I believe we were gonna, again, kind of both just in regard to our ongoing energy efficiency work. I know we looked at it last month, but just wanted to get the EUI rankings back in front of everybody's eyes again, just to see where our efforts can be focused. Obviously, this is, you know, our energy efficiency work is gonna steps that we can actually be taking as opposed to, you know, relying on grid improvements from Duke. You know, these are some of the actions that we can be taking right away to help, again, reduce that amount of energy that we use overall. And as I mentioned there in the report, the cleanest energy is the one kilowatts we don't actually have to use. So, and the one I'm focused on is obviously police headquarters there, our highest EUI ranking facility. And I think since our last meeting, I've been in discussion with our buildings and facilities folks, and they've identified a number of issues they're having over at police headquarters, and I've offered my energy efficiency funds to them to identify like a bucket list of action items that they can take to spend those funds here in the next couple months. So I think they're in the process of getting that list and getting it submitted out to vendors for some quotes. So there's things like some dampers over there that aren't functioning properly, a number of dampers. There's some, I think some, and he was supposed to send me the full list, so I'm trying to remember all the points he said, but some pressure switches, I think, on some of the HVAC units. There's like a list of 4 or 5 items that they were gonna submit that all out to get taken care of all at once. So the hope is those will really help kind of get the building tuned up a little bit. It's obviously obviously could be functioning better than it is right now. So hopefully within the next couple of months, we'll have that work being performed at police headquarters, and we'll be able to monitor it and see what kind of impact we're having it. Begin to drive that energy use intensity for that facility down quite a bit. So, you know, obviously it's a 24/7 facility with a lot of specialized, they got some driving simulators in there, got, you know, full office staff in there during regular business hours, as well as, you know, things occurring after hours in that facility as well. So perhaps not fair to compare it to a typical office building, but obviously there are some steps in there we can do to get it performing better than it is. So I want to bring y'all up to date on kind of what those actions are and where we are in the planning process for it to address it. We're also looking at the building management system for that facility much closer now. Rob Blakeman is excellent on our BMS systems and looking at it every morning as he comes in, not only for that facility, but for facilities across we have BMS systems on, really helping to fine tune some of our facilities. So that one's on my list, and yeah, Fire Station 1, I think we're already beginning to talk about in regard to the next one that we're looking at. That's probably number 2 on my list for improvements.
We've got air handlers, 10 air handlers that are going to be replaced in that building.
Yep.
Are you planning, those systems, are they variable speed drives or are they just constant volume?
I'm pretty sure they're there.
Is there a BMS system on that building?
That is, we added BMS on 2 buildings, City Hall and the fire headquarters.
You bring up Thalian Hall, City Hall. Still, do you know any additional talk to this that's going to stay on our books, or what's the?
Well, so the city will have no active presence in that facility. There's still talks going on about the use, what's going to be in there. So it's probably premature to say 100%, but the situation that we're in right now is that there's essentially one utility account that comes to us for that building, and we don't occupy it. So remember that as we talk about how we're moving forward. So something is going to change. I'm just not sure what it is. So.
Hey, can I ask a quick question about Thalian right now? I noticed the beautiful lights that were all down the front of it. It looks spectacular. Any chance those are LEDs?
I'm pretty sure they are, but yeah, we can check.
I mean, little stuff like that, just, kind of continuing, though you can't fix necessarily everything, but you're addressing things where you can.
As well as all the lighting on Riverwalk this year. I don't know if y'all have been down along the Riverwalk, but and I don't know if that was WDI, downtown folks who did that, or if it was our folks who put up all the lighting.
It was not us. It was some other group.
So, yeah, well, that Thailand City Hall discussion kind of brings up the other document I sent out this morning, just that comparison. 929 North Front Street versus the existing facilities, and that's the list of facilities that we are offloading at some point. Obviously, we're not completely out of all of these yet, but I just kind of wanted to get a basic look at, accurate look at the average monthly electricity use for all of those facilities, which I did not include City Hall in that list because I wasn't sure what it is, but that would be a significant additional contribution to that total at the bottom of those.
Yeah, two questions. Is there any natural gas at 929?
I don't have an account yet for them, and I have not heard for sure, but I assume there's got to be some gas in there.
I would think so, because I think they had a big cafeteria at one point. The other thing that caught my attention, or at least I thought about, was are we going to be in a different tariff, a different rate structure for this facility than the other buildings, just because of the sheer size of the load there? I don't know if there's an opportunity to be in a better rate schedule or not.
Yeah, it is a different rate schedule. That's something we'll have to look into, DJ. For sure. We're still getting moved. Everyone moved into there, so it's still early on to, kind of have anything to compare a whole lot to yet. So,
That 1.3 megawatts that you got hit in September window, if that was some piece of equipment that came on, you're gonna get that for a rolling 12 months. So I don't know if that's normal.
Yep, that bump
Yeah.
was already something we're looking into. What was the cause of it?
Those were the three things that stood out in my head on first look.
So this is projected annually for next year for all of
That projected annually is just that for 929.
Okay.
So you can see the total annual for the 5 facilities or 6 facilities in the top chart or top portion there. So yeah, again, the projected annual for 929 is just based on those 3 months so far. So
When consider like the sort of alarming part to me about that is like these 3 months are like typically they're shoulder months for us. So like this is on the low end of what your monthly average is going to be because it doesn't include winter or summer months.
Yeah.
The other note that I had was since we hit that 1300 kW last month, the facility should be eligible for smart metering from Duke. So I would encourage the city to, and that should not be at any cost to you with that eligibility. So that should be able to provide you with interval data, which like, for example, if you hit that 1300 kW, like the interval data would pinpoint exactly at what 15-minute point during the month did you hit, did we use that, which should help you track down where it's coming from.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I'm not sure what it is. You have to be above 1,000.
1,000. Yeah. I think it's as long as you're above 1,000 for like 1 month a year, I think.
Be worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, it's no cost for you guys and you can access it at any time, like on your Duke account. You should be able to access it pretty much. I think it's live. It's either live or it's 24-hour delayed. But
So there's a BMS system for 99. Who's tapped into that, or our facility guys, or is it just?
That's the new facilities manager down there, Daryl. Oh. There is another building that will be on the surplus list, which is the Police Southeast Command building.
I hadn't heard that.
They've moved some of their staff out of there and into the building at the Op Center. And they will be moving off-site so it'll probably inherit a leased space at some point when the remaining people get out of that facility. That will be surplus as well.
So all of these, I mean, sorry, but these buildings are basically gonna become 929, or they're gonna be.
Yeah, all the
removed?
people within those buildings have been moved to 929, so they're gonna be,
Or will be.
so they'll be offloading those facilities.
Okay.
Yep.
And so these, what we're looking at is that's from the tenant or
This is the last 3 months.
from the people that are renting the space right now, or,
For this part down here.
yeah,
That's just the energy use for all of 929.
How-
Last 3 months.
I think Sean's question is like, during those 3 months, what percentage of our
Yeah,
people were in
occupied.
those? Yeah,
Very low.
yeah. So this is like, in my mind, this is like close to a minimum. Because like we have it being shoulder month, so it's not extremely cold, extremely hot. And you have it to where we have minimal occupancy in that building. So you don't have, people using.
I hate to say that November may have been the best month because that's when we had the most people in there.
Yeah, as well as the floors that we're gonna lease out there,
Mhm.
which have not been leased, but
So,
Well, two of them.
there's still some.
2 out of the 4 floors are leased
occupied.
and occupied.
That's like Thermo Fisher.
Thermo Fisher. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, you'd want to look at their computer, if they have other servers or all that. I mean, whoever holds that lease in the future, because that was a huge energy consumption. Try to cool computers.
So has there been any more, I know I'm sure it's very far down on the list and I know it was kind of mentioned before, but has there been any more discussion about how the utility rate is how the utility billing is gonna work for the tenants? Like if they're gonna be charged a utility bill or if they're just if it's just included in their rent price or?
At this point, it's included in the rent price. Because there's no separate metering per floor.
From a taxpayer standpoint, I think it would make sense for the city to look into sub-metering those floors.
Yeah, and just remember that the city can't charge the tenants for electricity.
Well, but they can build it into the rent price.
That's right, but charging it makes you a regulated utility in North Carolina. I mean, they should, I mean, I think Duke will come in and put a sub meter in for you. I mean, you gotta pay them, I think, but would it have a separate account?
Don't quote me, but I want to say it's $100 install fee and then like $20 a month or something for a sub meter.
Yeah, so just wanted to get some of that preliminary info in front of y'all to, I don't know, is it gonna be a net gain or net loss, kind of look into as we vacate all these facilities? What's the impact gonna be on our overall electricity use? So
The projection's concerning.
yeah.
Go from 1.6 to 5 is
Um,
it's a
you
lot.
know, But yeah, be aware, it looks like I have an additional facility to add on here with the Police
Yeah.
Southeast Command, as well as potentially Thalian Hall, which is big energy user as well.
Now, I know you're using like a separate facilities management team or company over there. Are they like a third party, or are they gonna be city employees just dedicated for that facility?
Dedicated to that facility. So they
Are they going to fall under your purview, or their Daryl is gonna be his own entity?
right now, they are their own
Alright.
independent department.
Staff. Because at some point you'd want to get the details from him about like how they're running that building, particularly since there's a BMS system. I mean, there's lots of different things you guys could do to maximize the efficiency of the building, just depending on how it's running.
Yeah.
So at some point you would want to get the information from him about how does that building operate, and are we doing it in the most efficient way, or
Building schedules and all of that.
schedules and programming sequences, like how you have your equipment running, or your chillers on resets, or your boilers on resets. How much outside air are you pulling in for Thermo Fisher, with it being either manufacturing or pharmaceutical or whatever it might have been, their outside air requirements could be substantially higher than just office space. So that's a lot more like a latent heat, outside heat that you're pulling in that you may not need to. I mean, all different things like that, but there's just a lot of opportunity there. Because like 400,000 I mean, you'd have to figure out how many square feet it is and stuff, but like 400,000 kilowatt hours as a baseline is like, again, it's all dependent on the size, but like seems high. And I don't know anything about Thermo Fisher or PPD before them, but like I wouldn't assume off the bat that they were running the building as efficiently as they could. I'm not sure that was their priority. So I would think that there's probably room for opportunity there. And with it being such a large facility, it's where kind of like PJ was talking about earlier, like that's going to be your biggest bang for your buck, because, turning a dial on a 30,000 square foot facility is going to have much less of an impact than turning a dial on a however many hundreds of thousands square feet we have over there.
And remember, that facility opened in 2007, so it's already 16 years old.
Yeah.
So technology's changed a lot.
Good building, good candidate for our energy audit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Things to think about as you move in.
Yep.
And that's where, that's, you can kill a bunch of birds with one stone with that, where if you, like, let's say you do an energy audit, or you start working on the BMS system in that building, you get wins like, you can tell City Hall we're focusing on the comfort of our tenants in our new building. We can improve our comfort, we can reduce our energy usage. It's good PR that we're being responsible stewards, and that we're optimizing this fancy smancy new building we have. There's just a lot of different wins for, in the grand scheme of things, like very low cost, because you have the BMS there, you have a team of people that are going to be managing it. As long as they know, if they are educated on how to do it the right way, you're putting money back in the city's pocket just based on their salaries. So that would be my take.
I don't think we'll have any resistance to trying to help conserve energy in that building.
Well, not when they see that number, for sure.
Well, like I said, they're already looking at LED lighting retrofit.
They came to us with.
Yeah.
We put LEDs.
Wide,
in
yeah,
there.
wide eyes, like, yeah.
Which, yeah, I'm surprised, surprised they recognized it was not LED right on. So,
One, have you, just the thing to think about when you're doing that is it might be, depending on the cost, it might be worth it for you guys to do I don't remember what they call it, but like for lack of a better term, like a right sizing study for the LEDs, like for the lighting. So again, like,
De-lamping.
yes, like again, like, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, that kind of stuff may have different foot candle requirements than office space. And typically a basic like retrofit, you're gonna go in there, you're gonna see a 48-watt T4 and say, we're gonna replace it with this LED equivalent that actually puts out a ton more lumens. And so if you switch out 4 fluorescents with 4 LEDs, typically you end up with significantly more light than you need. So, there's an opportunity, you can delamp and just put 2 LEDs in there. And so depending on, what it would take to figure that out, I think that could be worthwhile too, if you're talking about spending, enough money to replace like all the bulbs and all the lamps in that building, it's probably worthwhile to see like, well, could we cut that number in half or more, whatever it might be.
I just have one comment about, so you're saying in October, November is when most of city staff was there and you jumped 100 to 150 and then you compare it back to average monthly at 138. That just seems like a lot. Is that the only thing that happened during that period? I mean, obviously the temperature changes outside, but.
Well, if you look at, you could look at, these are so rough, like it's hard to say, but if you wanted to, you could look at, you went from 345 to 497. So you increase 140 basically, which is almost the exact total of.
Right.
Now just moving occupants, like you're not moving AC systems, you're not moving, all that kind of stuff. So it's high. The 600 kilowatts is that's a pretty big jump for November, especially, I think a big thing you need to find out, like one of the priorities would be what kind of heat do they have, gas heating or is it electric heating? If it's a bunch of heat pumps with electric heating, that can explain some of this because we've had cold days. And if all those heat pumps are scheduled to cut on at the exact same time, then you have 1,000 kW worth of heat strips firing up or whatever, could explain some of that. But yeah. I think that with it being an office building, we're like, okay, we have a couple floors of tenants that we don't really control what it is that they're doing, but like we know what our people are doing when they're in the building and when they're not. The interval data will be a huge help to you because you can see like, if we're getting 1,300 kilowatt hours at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, we know something's going on with our equipment that doesn't need to be, we don't need our equipment firing up like that at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday when all we have is our ops staff there or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking into that with Duke if it's a smart meter or something. Next agenda item?
Yes.
I think it was the
Review top recommended action items for 2024 focus community garden / compost pilot project discussion.
So, yeah, I think I just wanted to look back on the 2024 focus items, which is what's listed in the report. Even. I think and we don't have to list it out necessarily today, but begin to think about what we want to be working on, some specific actions, areas we want to focus on for the remainder of 2024 here, or at least our fiscal year 2024, as well as let's just say over the next year, kind of begin to wrap our heads around that. Obviously we're going to continue to work on energy efficiency efforts, but if there's such as the community garden composting program that was listed in this action, in this agenda item as well. There's some areas there that we want to begin to put some effort behind, or some things that perhaps may not be on the list that we want to consider adding. So just kind of want to open it up for some discussion.
So one question I have that we've touched on it a few times, and it kind of comes down, and maybe it's a conversation best had offline, I don't know. It just comes down to, I think, city staff preference, is like how granular you want us to get with recommendations, like, I mean, PJ and I are energy efficiency managers. We can sit here and say, make your buildings more energy efficient, or we can get more specific and say, do X, Y, and Z. So I think that's probably more a question for you guys as far as like, do you want us to just say like, make your building, focus on energy efficiency, or do you want us to say like, hey, you should do this, and this with your facilities that you have?
I think you should view it like if it's an action that we can take internally, operationally, then we're available to listen to any nth degree of granularity that you want. But if it's something that goes beyond that,
Sure.
then I think the more formal process that we've adopted, Robert's Rules of Order, voting on a recommendation that is of
Sure.
consensus for the group,
Sure.
that's how I would view it.
Works for me.
So that I think Dave and I are open to gain as much as we can, because y'all
Sure.
bring expertise that we don't have.
Yeah, and that was my question, because I don't, as committee chairperson, like, I don't want us as a committee to be telling you how to do your jobs, or overstepping what it is that you would like us to be providing you. This is a service that we're providing to the city. So I don't want us to move outside of what it is that we're supposed to be doing for you.
Sure. Understood.
I think, I know we recognize that the expertise that all of you guys bring to this group is exceptional. Dave and I were just talking the other day that we feel like we've got an amazing group of folks on this committee right now. So yeah, I mean, you guys all have different areas that specialties. So
I like this. I like your outline of kind of goals for 2024. I'd say I think it's kind of actually interesting to look at what you have listed here, because I think a lot of it is like a culmination of what the last year's work was. So if we can actually do things like actually get the fleet transition study approved and issue an RFP for it, that's something that we talked about all last year. We can actually get it done this year. That'd be great. Kind of same thing with sustainable building policy. Like, we were working through what that should look like and how to present it and that kind of stuff. And now we're talking about moving it, actually in front of city council. So I think we did a good job that last year or this year of identifying needs and figuring out what needs to happen to make them happen. And now in 2024, we can actually get the results from that, I think would be a success, is how I would see it. So I think there's a lot of stuff here that is kind of like, okay, it's in the works. Let's see, hopefully by the end of the year, we can have results from it. What I would challenge everyone else to do is say, okay, so these are the things that we already have kind of done the legwork on, and we're working on getting approval and implementation on. What are, let's see if we can come up with 3 or 4 more ideas of things that we can get started talking or planning about, so that we have more action items coming up for going forward.
I have some additional feedback as well for looking forward. to throw it back to the ad hoc committee, I do remember talking about in order to really kind of extend our reach and scale along with the growth that Wilmington continues to see would be to have some additional support. I don't know if there's like David, I don't know how you do everything that you do, honestly, like truly. And I just wonder like as we try to, really scale our capacity, if it would make sense, given, some changes on city council, like I think Jessica noted earlier as well, like, does this feel like a time where we could pitch some additional support, staffing wise, just to see like what we could do with even more people, designated towards, ensuring that we have just more bandwidth to be able to work on all of these things that are in the air.
Tying into that, like, well, sorry, yeah, if you're gonna respond, please do.
Yeah, that's additional staffing is obviously a big budget request, which, yeah, I don't know if there's been any plans at this point.
He's sitting there with dreaming, how nice that would
It's like
be.
I've said it a bunch of times.
Yeah, obviously, additional capacity, staffing is always good. I have to say from, just discussions and, being involved with our groups from around the state, I'm certainly not the only one in position of being a sole sustainability person. It's very much dependent, I would say, it's on size of the cities and, different budget levels, all of that. But I'm sure Dave could add some context too. But it's never easy getting an additional staff person.
Dave says, I want to keep my job, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
No, I appreciate Andrew's comment. I think it's very, very early in the process, especially with the two new council members to
Make an ask.
to think about that. I agree with you that from everything that I've learned about them, they tend to be leaning into supporting this cause. We're getting ready to start a budget process with them that's going to be somewhat eye-opening. I think it sounds to me like Ms. Andrews has some prior government experience, not for Joyner, at least not in the capacity that he's in. So I think possibly after we get a process under our belts, it might be better suited in a future year.
Okay.
One opportunity I think we might have that would be interesting is like, if by the end of the year for the budget, so you're doing 2024 budget now, 25 budget now. So if next year for the 26 budget, if we include, say like maybe two budget asks that are, you have like a fully laid out ROI of like, let's say 2 years or less, where you ask the city, give me X amount of extra dollars, I'll save them back to you within the year or within 2 years. Pretty easy sell in most cases. And in my mind, that would just gauge city council's level of support and openness to these initiatives, where it's like, give me $50,000 for LEDs and we can save that back at 929 in 6 months, whatever it might be. As far as energy efficiency or like sustainability projects goes, that's probably about as easy of a sell as you're going to get. And I think that would be a good way to gauge the support from city council on, can we start spending money to save money?
I would just add that I think this end of year report is a look what we can do with what we have, imagine what we could do with more. And And I would also just say that, like, I know that so many people in this group have much more like technical expertise and everything. I often sit on these calls I'm like in my actual, like my career is, I'm director of deal desk, and I think about like all of the negotiations and everything else. And I know that you all have more extensive experience, within like the government side of things, but I just think if we don't ask and if we don't push for those things, then we won't even get the compromise, you know? So if we ask for a full-time person and we end up with an intern that can help write grants or do something like that, like that's kind of where my head is at, is like, even if we don't get the full thing that we're asking for, kind of pushing the envelope a little bit and letting them know where our priorities lie and kind of challenging them to put the funding behind how important all of this work is. That's kind of where,
Andrea,
acknowledging.
that's a great idea, Andrea. I just want to add on to that. Do we have a summer intern program? And I think getting a grant for that would be pretty easy. And there are so many kids available. Every year I hear about kids my children's age who are, doing some sort of environmental program at their college, and they're looking for a summer gig. I know CFPUA really takes advantage, and those young people obviously are so good at pulling together the tech side of reporting. So number one, do we have an internship? Dave, would you be interested in spearheading one? And two, even if it's unpaid, I think you would probably get a warm body. And two, I know we talked about this before, but I think if we were to consider it, and it's free, some sort of employee distinction or bonus or award program where employees who think of ways to save energy and to be more efficient and bring those ideas to staff, and if people end up taking action on those, we should reward that. And I think it's a way to actually empower people that are sitting in their spaces and seeing how they use their vehicles, whatever it is. It's a way to empower them to actually make things happen. It's also a way to raise awareness and kind of hype for, we're going to be a green municipal operation, and it's free. And it's something that we could put on our to-do list, is to develop some sort of an employee incentive program. And then again, I think the intern idea is really good. I don't know if we've ever talked about that before.
I know UNCW's environmental science department has a intern matching program. So
Okay. Have we ever had one, Dave?
Yeah, we have we have lots of interns.
So I know
Okay.
UNCW's we could reach out to their environmental science department directly and say, we have an internship position, unpaid, open for a, environmental science student who's interested in sustainability, and because they'll match them for to start building, work experience for as they go
Right.
on and get their resumes and that kind of stuff. So it's I know when I was there, I was matched with environmental health and safety. And so I worked with, the team there, in an unpaid internship, just to get work experience relevant to the career field. So I don't think we'd have an issue there. It's plenty.
That'd be great. And I don't know, maybe there's someone either on our city council or somebody at the chamber who might even be able to do a quick sponsorship of that intern. Who knows? Somebody at the chamber, there might be somebody who's willing to throw, $1,500 for the summer, $500 a month, just to make it. So I don't know, it's something to look into. It'd be free.
Great suggestion, thanks.
And then what do you think about the employee awards or bonus or recognition, at least?
Yeah, we've actually been talking about some additional education outreach efforts internally that we could do in collaboration with our communications folks. That I think
Maybe we could put that on the list and we'll talk about it again in the new year.
That was missing. I just thought about that. We don't have the communications. And also, for the composting, didn't we talk with the Parks and Recreation?
Yeah.
That would be good. I don't know. Did you write that down?
as far as, yeah, I mean, we
We didn't pick a site.
Right, but that we talked.
Met with.
Yeah.
The one thing I would throw in about the intern piece, if you're thinking about doing that, make sure that there's somebody there that's there to supervise them or give them direction. And then you're going to really get a lot more out of it. Be able to kind of work with them and potentially even having them connect with Jared or whoever's doing the social media thing, that could be a really amazing thing to even kind of bring in a newer audience to the group. Tying back into the other thing you were just saying, I lost my train of thought.
Rewards.
Oh, rewards, yes. Multiple utilities, we've done similar type things. And especially when you kind of bring it to, you know, everybody's attention that this person suggested this idea, it's amazing the support, one, that person gets, two, just the whole culture of the company is strengthened by things like that. And then plus, again, what you're doing and highlighting with your social media, just for the city out to everybody else, that's just one more way to bring positive reinforcement to everything you're doing.
These are great ideas. I appreciate it, Joe.
Just as a thought, Dave, I know you said that, you know, the individual facilities now bear their utility bill costs, which is like, I still don't know how you did it. Kudos to you. I still think it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. You know, both of you.
He did it.
I think
He pushed it. I just.
that's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But anyway, I think one easy, like, again, an easy opportunity might be like an education, like info sessions for the people in charge of their, you know, whoever's running their buildings. You know, I know you said like the fire stations, like when the utility bills went to them, they started being like, how do we save money on this? You know, we could have one where, you know, send us your fire chiefs or whoever it is that's controlling your setting what the temperatures are and when the lights come on and off and stuff, and we can give you a presentation on how you can make that more efficient for yourselves. You know, it's not going to be any capital outlay. We're not talking about empowering the fire stations to spend money, but just like things that they can do around the firehouse or police station or parks and rec building or whatever it is to help them lower their usage proactively, just by, you know, touching a dial or flipping a switch, whatever.
When the police chief comes to Dave and says, why are my energy bills so high these last 2 months? Something's working.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can tell them, you know, hey, we have a resource for that. Let's set you up with an info session so we can teach you all about how you can keep that down.
Energy awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are great suggestions. The whole kind of internal outreach and kind of identifying, you know, energy efficient champions. I think that's a great thing that we could really push and run with. Those are great suggestions. Can include that perhaps in our department strategic plan that we're working on. Okay.
Anybody else got anything? We're getting close to 2:30.
You know, I know I had the community garden composting thing on here as well. Just I want to, you know, every few months at least, kind of, you know, keep it on everybody's radar. I think it would be a big effort, but I think it's still something kind of worthwhile to keep in the conversation. I need to actually, you know, I've been tied up with a few presentations here this last month or so, but I definitely need to reach back out to perhaps our parks folks and kind of continue the discussion a bit and see if it's something we want to pursue. I
They
know
seemed pretty open to it.
I know there's some, you know, the state has its community waste reduction grant out there right now, which for like food waste reduction is one of the areas of focus. So, you know, we could, one potential funding source if we want to look into, you know, I know previous communities have done things like build out compost drop-off bins around, you know, their jurisdiction. So anyway, there's just potential funding out there to help perhaps kickstart a program, but it's obviously something we would have to reach out to community partners to kind of ongoing help to staff those kind of
Yeah,
things.
wasn't there some statement in that one document that the city agreed to that seemed like not to fit in what we were trying to?
Yeah, they were saying like this,
I
the
think that-
verbiage was not very friendly.
Yeah,
But I think, what I would like to see is, I think maybe it makes sense for us to take 20 or 30 minutes at the next meeting and just kind of brainstorm, like, what are some of the opportunities? What are a lot of the roadblocks or the challenges to this? Because I know there are some that, depending on how you look at it, could be non-starters. So I'd like to, we can put it on the board or whatever, and through that discussion, decide if it's something that you guys feel is worth, like, is feasible to pursue, or is something better left to like a community partner. Because I think there's some, I think it's a great opportunity. I think there are some challenges to it that like may be where, to the level where the city's like, we're not gonna deal with this, like rodents, and like if we can't find a way to deal so that people aren't dropping rotten meat off, and so the rodents are getting into it, and we're having rodent infestations in our parks, like we don't want to deal with it, so there are some things like that. So I think we should brainstorm those things, so we have those questions that Dave and David can ask to the necessary parties, so that then the determination can be made whether it's something that's possible or not.
I like that idea. I like the whiteboarding exercise idea, kind of. Formulate some actions around next steps.
yeah, wasn't that the plan for maybe January to go through these, prioritize and make sure we're
Yeah,
still
still
all
aligned.
agree?
Yep.
I think a lot of them you see in this
Mhm.
summary, but it might be good to get some more bullet points. And,
Yeah.
We can review those.
Sounds good.
Anybody have anything else? Doesn't seem like it. Nope, some head shakes. Okay, so in that case, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
you.
to
Have a
everybody.
great Christmas. Bye, everyone. Take
Bye.
care.
Well.